Something we all probably understand that it is important to listen, but some of us in many walks of our life probably underestimate the power of listening. I was with a friend of mine the other day, having met her for a cup of coffee, and when she asked me about my travel plans for the year, I kind of started casually talking about my immediate travel plans. Halfway through my first sentence, I suddenly realized that she wasn't paying attention. She was busy looking at her iPhone, typing away on Twitter or Facebook, and though she kept an occasional eye contact, her mind was elsewhere. She was hearing but not listening. Many of us obviously face similar situations in our daily life amongst friends, family members, amongst colleagues, even in an office environment or in a business environment, among clients, among casual conversations, probably in meetings as well. The act of not listening indicates a complete disinterest in and a lack of focus in what the talker believes to be important at that point in time. So what are the key elements of listening? The first is body language. When I'm sitting across listening to a person, I must listen with not only my ears but also my eyes and my heart. It is important to listen not only to the words but also the emotion behind it, which probably many a time comes with the tone of the voice. This will enable us to listen to the why and not just the what. Also, the way we sit, if you're sitting across a person, probably leaning slightly forward to show interest rather than, just sort of relaxed and showing a complete disinterest. Maintaining an appropriate eye contact to show sincerity. And if the conversation is a little lighthearted, probably loosen up and smile at the appropriate time. Not to cross your arms on the chest. Listening with the eyes by observing the body language of the talker and listening with the heart to feel and empathize with the talker is necessary to make that connection. The second point is paraphrasing. I find paraphrasing especially very important in probably informal meetings or in situations where probably the language could be a barrier. Paraphrasing helps to demonstrate that you've heard what was said and also indicates that you are interested. Paraphrasing can be done by way of questions or statements depending on the situation. To give you some examples, probably questions like, would you mind clarifying what you mean by that? Or what could be your next step? Could be some of the questions that could be useful. Now, some of these questions obviously helps to create the trust and the holding environment in that relationship. Third, silence. Attentive, welcoming, vacuum, or silence. Listening is not all about complete silence, but I would say you need to use silence to provide a larger receptacle for the talker to unload, model, and remodel the personal thoughts, feelings, and motivations. One needs to listen to understand rather than to respond, and many of us listen to respond rather than listen to understand. The latter works well not only in coaching sessions and counseling sessions, but also in situations of emotional outbursts. Let me give you an example. One of my friends was not feeling very well, and I called on her to find out how she was doing. We exchanged the usual pleasantries for about a minute or so in the call, after which my friend started sharing about her health issues, her problem at work, demands being made on her to attend every social event of the office. She obviously had a new boss and she had a complete downpour of her unhappiness with work and how this was causing health-related issues. Since I was on the phone, I had to make sure that she realized that I was listening. And the only interruption that I used was, I see, oh, okay. She sounded very agitated, stressed, and almost felt as if she was just ready to give up. When she finished venting out, she said, "Hey, so what do you think?" And before I could even answer that question, she said, "Oh my God, I feel so much better now that I have poured myself out and you listened." We did discuss later on what she should consider doing at end her agony. But the most important takeaway of that conversation was that she wanted somebody to listen. And many times in our lives, we exactly need that. We need somebody to just listen there without any interruptions, but just being there for us. Which brings me to the next point. Listening without filters, judgments, and interruptions is absolutely imperative. Many times when we are in conversations, many of us probably as a listener, so-called listener, meander away in our thoughts and go on a journey of our own experiences. We are probably physically there but not mentally with that person, not empathizing with that person because we have wandered in our own thoughts. Again, in a lot of these conversations, it's of no use if you say, "Oh, I've gone through the same thing. And this is what I did." The person is not interested in listening to your advice at that point in time. They're not asking for your advice. They're not asking for your suggestion at that time. All they need is a ear, an empathetic ear to listen to. Again, never make the person feel that their problem is less important by saying or expressing something like, "Oh, I've gone through worse, so don't worry about it." That's something which you should never tell a person, because every person's problem is important and all they need, as I repeat myself, is an ear to listen. Listening and looking. Again, making an eye contact is very, very important. When a person is talking to you, you can't sort of look away, go away in your own thoughts. And a lot of times I've seen that when you sit in restaurants, either one-on-one or when you're talking to a group, there's a lot of people think they're engaging in a conversation, but they sort of look away trying to figure out whom else they know in the restaurant, or admire the ambience, or admire the dishes, or somebody else doing something else. And that to me is an absolute insult, because there's somebody who's trying to talk to you and you're just in your own world. The kind of attitude you display during a conversation is a key element of listening. Finally, email communication. You may be wondering, what has email got to do with listening? Obviously, we live in an age and world of chats, email communication, social media, Twitter, Facebook, direct messages, and what have you. And I'm sure many of you have been in situations where you've sent an email to someone and have been waiting for a response. Days pass, there's no response. And it's not like you don't know the person, you probably know the person, or it could be a business contact who has sort of told you to come back to you on something, and you diligently go within the specified time. But you don't see any communication. In today's world, where communication has taken so many forms, I believe that for any relevant email that each of us receive, it is a courtesy to reply to that email immediately. Or at the bare minimum, acknowledge so that the sender knows that you have seen it. You will attend to it when you get the time, just by saying, "Okay, seen it," or "Okay, thank you." Makes a huge difference to make sure that the person actually feels, yes, they have actually seen it, they'll come back to me. Silence doesn't help. So next time you want to be listened to, ask yourself, what would you like from the person who's sitting across you? And if they have given you their undivided attention and empathy, make sure you do the same by listening and empathizing in day-to-day life in the various conversations that you may be having with people. Thank you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم